Hello everyone and welcome to this event as part of the East Suffolk Business Festival. My name is Maureen McInnes. I'm the Business and Enterprise Lead at East Suffolk Council. I work in the Economic Development team, and it's my pleasure to have today Dan Coombs from Proximity Futures, who is working on a key project for us at East Suffolk. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've been working on a project alongside other team members to deliver digital transformation into towns. There's sort of several strands to the project. A key element has been about this drive to install free-to-use public Wi-Fi and digital footfall counters in our town centres in order to get more data intelligence about how our town centres are being used, but also to be able to support those towns on a bit of a journey of digital transformation and digital presence themselves so that they can become better promoted, allow for greater business presence online, and to have excellent communication with their visitors. We know that free-to-use public Wi-Fi is often of great value to our town centres, especially when there's low connectivity, but also when a lot of people are on sort of more difficult contracts or just needing to do quick access in low connectivity points. So we're delighted to be able to install it into all of our key market town centres over the next 2 years. The project grew out of a pilot project in Framlingham, and Dan today is going to just talk through over the dashboard and some of the data aspects of the project. I just wanted businesses in the festival and attendees today to know that it also lies alongside other digital transformation program work that we're doing at East Suffolk. This includes digital skills and support for businesses, but also a wide range of digital interventions for towns and businesses across the programme. So if you want to get in touch with further inquiries, you can either contact me directly or the Economic Development team through the website. Just to remind you that there's lots of other events of great value during the Business Festival, but very much thank you for coming along today. And so Dan, I just wanted to hand over to you just to sort of start talking about your company, where it's come from, and perhaps also a useful demo of the dashboard itself. Many thanks, Dan.
No problem, thank you. Thanks for the invite. So yes, my name's Dan Coombs. I work for Proximity Futures. We're based in Hinckley in Leicestershire in the Midlands. We've been working with many towns now with Wi-Fi and footfall for around a 6-year period. So our journey really started with Hinckley in Leicestershire. We have an IT company here, and we were approached by our local bid to talk about Wi-Fi for the town centre, and that's how we really started on this journey. And the main sort of focus for Hinckley at that time was to be able to communicate with the public and give a forum for local businesses to inform people of what's going on within the town. It was an extremely interesting time at that period because no one was really sort of looking at Wi-Fi as a project for town-wide projects. A lot of people doing hotspots and small areas and indoor Wi-Fi. We work very, very closely with the Business Improvement District to get a real leverage with Wi-Fi in the town centre, where we have a communication tool with public and businesses alike. So the chap that we were working with at the time was a chap called Jonathan White, who was running the bid. We looked at different options for installing Wi-Fi into the town centre, and we ended up actually building a wireless infrastructure right throughout the town with multiple access points. So the whole town has got access to free Wi-Fi. So some of the things that we did a little bit differently, the bid was very interested in understanding some data on people that visited the town, and this is something we've carried on right throughout the 6 years that we've been working on these projects. And so we were very keen on a login process for people to give us a little bit of information about themselves, where they come from, how old they are, gender, and a couple of other bits of demographic information. But one of the key things was really the location that people were coming from and what sort of age group they fit into. For the bid in particular, they ran a few events throughout the year and had quite a trouble really communicating with people about these events, and the success of them wasn't great in the early days, and they were very, very focused on getting the message out to people that use the town. One of the things that we found quite early on is when people log on and use the Wi-Fi, one thing we know for sure is that they've been in the town centre. So we know they've been to that location, whether it's because they work there or they're visiting, or they visit on a regular basis for shopping or leisure facilities. So it was really, really key for the bid that they got information. They know people have been in town, and they were able to communicate via email and also promote other things through email. So they were very active on promoting social media and very active on Twitter and Facebook. It grew that forum for them as well. And over the years that we've been working with some of the Leicestershire towns, we've seen massive increase in events and other things that they've had going on, so promotions that they've done around specific projects like new businesses, new shops, etc. And we've seen huge growth. And so as an example, in Hinckley, there's a population of about 45,000, and there's over 20,000 people that have logged onto the Wi-Fi, and around 17,000 that have agreed to communication. So they're happy to be communicated with, and in fact, they want to know what's going on. And this is a key driver for our projects within East Suffolk, is to be able to communicate with people and let them know what's going on over quite a wide area. So we're working with 11 towns altogether, including the pilot that was done in Framlingham. So the Wi-Fi itself is very simple. Everybody knows how Wi-Fi works. So you go into town, you will see free Wi-Fi, so it might be Lowestoft free Wi-Fi or Woodbridge free Wi-Fi, and you go through a login process where we use your email address for identification, so we know it's a real person, and we go through all the GDPR processes at that point as well and give access to privacy policies and other documents. And we do ask for some information: name, age, location, which there's been great debates about, and it works. People are happy to give information if they get something in return. We also ask some questions about what people are interested in. So if they're interested in events or special offers or just things of special interest, and they can tick a box and get communications on those specific interests, or just tick all of the above and get information on everything. And we've seen that work with great success in a number of towns. And as I said before, people really do show an interest of what's going on in their local areas, or indeed areas that they're visiting. So once people have logged onto the Wi-Fi, that's it. They just do it once, unless they change their phones, in which case they'll be asked to potentially log on again. And every time you come into town after that, you automatically connect to the Wi-Fi, and you're able to surf the internet free of charge, unlimited, so for as long as you like. So there's a number of reasons why people look to put Wi-Fi in, and it may be some councils look at purely for a connectivity point of view. A lot of people have got great phone packages that don't need Wi-Fi, but not everybody has. Sometimes, Framlingham's a great example, 4G connections via mobile is not great. So actually the Wi-Fi is really welcome in the fact that there's a nice solid connection there that people can use. So visitors and businesses alike, we work with many towns where outdoor markets might use the Wi-Fi to log on, have a secure login for taking cash payments via card machines, or just being able to get people connected so they can see other lines of stock that they might do. Very, very useful for informational purposes. You get people log in, they give you permission to send information. You can let them know about all sorts of different events that are going on, different opening times, different businesses, new events that are happening. So lots and lots of information that can be passed. So from a Wi-Fi point of view, there's lots of information we can see on the dashboard, which I'm going to show any second now. We also provide a footfall solution, which is completely separate. It doesn't use the Wi-Fi, and it's literally a Wi-Fi type solution, and it's counting devices. So it's a very, very good way for us to assess if the impact of events and things of special interest, is it bringing more people into the town, and by what sort of numbers. So with no further ado, I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see the portal. So this is what we call the Intellisense Portal. And there's a number of different data sets that we can bring into this portal. So we're going to focus today on Wi-Fi and Geosense. There are other things that we can add to this, such as car parking data or air quality or other data sets as well. So I'm just going to shrink this down so I can see properly. So you can see that this is for Framlingham. And we can see that on Wi-Fi, we get the number of visitors that we've had. So we can see how many in the last 7 days, how many in the 7 days before, and how long on average people are staying. And there's all sorts of demographics that we can get from this, which is really, really interesting stuff for businesses to be able to understand. So we can see in Framlingham, we've just got a registration form. There are other possibilities for people to log on, so Facebook or Twitter, other social media portals or forums that you can log on. In Framlingham, we've only got the registration form. So when you log on to the Wi-Fi, you fill in the form and it gives you access. So we can see that there's 88 new users that have logged on this week. And we can see the sort of activity throughout the days as well. We can see that it's either up or down, depending on the day. And this is looking at last week to the week, or last 7 days to the 7 days before. And we can see that on the pie chart here, Friday seems to be the day that people use it the most. And then we get some very interesting information about sort of gender. So we can see that males are using it more, and we can see the sort of age group that are using it more as well. So the sort of 20 to 30 age group, and the youngers, the 13 to 20, are the highest group. But nice to see we've got some 70 to 80-year-olds as well using it. And some more information around the sort of time of day. So the individuals using it throughout the night, and a peak around sort of school kicking out time or people finishing work. Maybe when they're sat at the bus stop waiting to go home or visiting the market, and then a steady drop off throughout the night. And we've got all sorts of connection time analysis that we can look at as well. So there's on the front of it, there's a good bit of information on the main dashboard. And then we have all sorts of reports that we can look at around connections and users. So we can see how many connections per day, and we can see how many users per day. So these are average connections and these are average users. And we can see that overall the users have come down. That's down to COVID. Obviously people getting banned out of town centres and villages for a period of time. And then really interestingly, we can look at things like location reports. So of the 286 people that have logged on this week, we know the postcodes of 284 of them. So we can really start looking at where people come from. On this side, we've got national sort of broken down into counties. And on the right-hand side, we have local breakdown. So it's broken down into individual villages. So when we hover over one of the days, it actually breaks down what villages people come from. And we can see that the majority come from Framlingham, but we've got others from further afield. So some really interesting information on that. And we can change timescales on all of this. It's all very flexible. So if I want to go and look at the last month, it's very easy to do that. And we can see that we've got nearly 1,200 visitors over the month. And we can see that on this day, there were people from Leicestershire, Rutland, Milton Keynes, Brackland and South Norfolk, but most come from Suffolk. We'd expect that to change in the summer when there's more visitors coming to Framlingham for the castle and the market, and it'll be interesting to see the changes. And this is the sort of information we're looking for local businesses, so that they may be able to sort of produce relevant information for the relevant people. There's lots of comparison reports that we can do, so we can compare different weeks on Wi-Fi activity, and lots of network reports as well. So we can look at sort of most popular browsers, operating systems, how much downloaded traffic there is, average roaming times, and we can look at sort of all the individual access points to see where is the busiest area, what times of day it's busy, how many users there are, and lots of information for the more techie among us. We're also able to look at filter reports, and this is really quite interesting when you're looking at, you know, what sort of things are people interested in. So when you're looking at social networking, over the last week there's been nearly 12,000 different pings around social networking, which is quite good to see in Framlingham. And looking at business services, over 2,000 hits on business services within that area. So it's interesting to see what people are looking at as a category, and if any of the things that we do make a difference to that. It's important to point out on this, we don't have any personal data shown on these portals at all. It's all just numbers. And we can see Framlingham, I think, has a population of around a couple of thousand. We've got nearly 1,600 people that have logged on, and over 1,000 that have said, yes, we want to be communicated with and are interested in receiving information. So that's a pretty quick look at the Wi-Fi dashboard. Then we'll move on to Geosense, which is a footfall solution. And Geosense, unlike Wi-Fi, people don't have to log on. It just sees smart devices and it counts them. It really is as simple as that. So we have a location, so I'll show the heat map. We have Geosense is set here, and here. So we have a location, and as you walk through an area, the sensor sees your smart device, it counts it, and it date and time stamps it. So it also takes a unique identifier, which is the Wi-Fi MAC address, which enables us to know whether the device has been seen before or not, and that's masked when it's stored. So also there's no personal data stored with this. So it's completely anonymous, and it really is just numbers, but it's extremely useful in understanding the impact of events and things that are happening within the local area. So we can see over the last couple of weeks, the footfall is relatively static, but we can see on this Saturday, on the 31-day chart, that there was quite a big increase compared to the Saturday before or the Saturday after. We can see here that it was a 28.4% increase on that Saturday compared to this Saturday. We can see the impacts of markets, I think, there as well. So this data is really, really useful to get an understanding of how footfall interacts with the town. We get average dwell times, and we get repeat and new visitors. We've got current visitors and a number of different reports that we can do from this. We also get sort of average visitors per hour from this, so we can see the peaks. And again, we've got that peak that coincides with the Wi-Fi usage around the sort of 4 or 5 o'clock mark. So whether this is people coming out from work or school, we're definitely seeing that peak there. We're also able to analyse dwell time, which again is really, really important if we're looking at understanding events and the impacts of events, or even just understanding a normal day. How much time do people spend within that location? So this is the front page, and we're able to export this into Excel or print as PDF. So we're able to record all of this information. And then we're also able to look at lots of other information It's really, really flexible in the fact that I can look at lots and lots of different timelines. So we've got, it defaults to the last 7 days. So we've got in blue, this is all time since the sensors were installed. So it's giving averages per year, per month, per week, per day. And then in orange is relevant to the calendar. So this is relevant to the last 7 days. And we can see that we've got each individual zone. And again, we've got dwell time. We've got the weather widget that tells us that it's been quite wet at some points over the last week. This is an extremely flexible report in the fact that we can just go in and look at any time range really. So if I just want to look at January, I can apply that and it gives me the figures for January here. Also, we can see the busy Saturday the other week in January. So lots of information on the location as a whole. And I can also look at individual zones. So if I want to go to an individual zone and look at the Market Hill and choose an individual day, so I can just look at yesterday and I can see the sort of makeup of the footfall through the day yesterday. I can add other zones to this if I want to as well. So it's extremely easy for the team to look at multiple dates, multiple time sets, and produce reports and get information to understand the impact of whatever project it is you're working on at that time. We're also able to look at separating day and nighttime out. So for nighttime economy, it's very easy for me to just choose a period. So we'll look at that week, but I can look at just the evening. So I can say from 5 o'clock up to midnight and apply that. And it gives me the information for that week. So we can see that Friday night is a busier night. Actually, Monday was quite busy. Lots of new visitors on Monday night, for whatever reason. And this is literally from 5 o'clock till midnight. So it's showing that footfall, which can be quite nice to separate that down, especially if you've got an evening event on, just to see what the impact is. Quite often footfall figures can be lost. The nighttime events can be lost in the bigger footfall of the daytime. So to be able to break it down over big periods like this and just look at specific times a day is really useful. And this was introduced for a lot of towns that we deal with that are looking at purple flag accreditation, which is specifically the nighttime economy. And there's a whole host of other reports. We have things like journey maps, which in Framlingham, there's only a couple of sensors, so the journey map is fairly basic, but it shows where we see people first. And then we also have a safe space indicator, which is showing how many people are in an area right now, so how many we've seen in the last 10 minutes. This has been really useful over the COVID period for some of the bigger cities and towns in particular that are interested in getting rangers out to areas where it's really busy, just so they can make sure that everybody's safe and able to enjoy their experience within town. So the dashboard itself is extremely easy to use. There's lots and lots of reports that can be done. It's very easy to extract data out and make your own reports as well. And in general, just very, very easy to share with business owners and peers alike. So I'm just going to stop sharing that at the moment and see if there are any questions before we move on. Morag, have you got any questions or?
No questions at the moment. I was just going to say, if anyone wants to add any, please put them in the chat or raise your hand.
Well, I've got a question anyway, Dan, just so that, just for information. Would you argue now that a lot of town visitors are expecting towns to have effective kind of connectivity and digital presence, that is sort of the way things are going, even in smaller market towns? I think a lot of people question sometimes digital relevancy in smaller places, but actually what we've seen, from research and survey work that actually the demand is higher than people think. Would you concur?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's not necessarily for every town, but I think there are definitely towns where it suits better. And I think from a public point of view, it's almost expected when you go somewhere to get free Wi-Fi. So from a public point of view, it's a definite expectation and often disappointment if it's not there. I think it very much depends on your background as well, because I mentioned earlier, some people have got, you know, great data packages on their phones, but there's a lot of people that haven't, and something like 60% of mobile phone contracts are pay-as-you-go, somewhere in that region. So a lot of people are still looking for free Wi-Fi to save their own data. But yeah, definitely there's an expectation for free Wi-Fi. A lot of councils that we deal with they want everybody to be inclusive as well. So from a council point of view, it's a great way to give people connectivity.
Yeah, that's it. That's great. Thanks, Dan. I think there are a couple of questions. John has asked where the data's held. First of all, I think there's two questions from John, and I think, do you want to cover that one first, Dan, and then we can move on to...
The data's, everything's held on Amazon servers in London.
Okay, thank you. And also, John's asked, he doesn't understand how a shopkeeper makes use of the data, but he understands how a council would. And I think we can both answer that kind of question or observation a bit more. So I'll go first, if that's okay, Dan. What we're intending to do with this kind of broad information is that we can deliver this kind of data packs into towns. And actually we have noticed that in other places, in other small towns, including Dan's quite extensive town client base, we do find businesses such as shops make changes. And this can be things like their opening hours, because they notice that there are different, busier, you know, or less busy times of day, or they might notice that there's a demographic change that they could perhaps promote to in a more effective way. And also, it's not so much the data here, but the actual wider tools itself can be used to promote local place and local businesses. So when people sign up for emails and about local offers and promotions, there is an opportunity for small businesses to get involved in local business groups or other campaigns that we're running, ensure that promotion happens. So that's a kind of roundabout reply to that, or observation from that. Dan, I don't think, have you got any further studies there?
A lot of towns that we've been involved with, if you look at individual businesses, it can be quite difficult to say, how does this individual business benefit? Because you might, for example, be a dentist that are on the high street, and there may not be a benefit of a lot of the individual activities. As a whole, when you're looking at a group that's looking to improve the area as a whole, and generally, this sort of information helps create communication. I think is key in letting people know everything that's going on. So I can think of a number of times in my local town where they've had things happening I just didn't know about and I've missed it. And I think that's, you know, it's a horrible thing to happen. You think, I'd love to have gone to that event and I didn't know. So the communication to enable people to know that there are things happening in town. And then it's really down to the individuals in town, or acting as group or individuals. It definitely works better as a group. If you can then understand what's happening, whether it's an event or it's just a new shop or something's happening that's bringing people in. And it might be something as simple as, we recently had a new donut shop open. How great is that? And people were queuing up outside. Other businesses were taking advantage of that and putting tables out with stuff on so that people can see what they do. And they were making the most of this really quite small event, but it brought lots of people in. So if you can communicate things that are going on locally within a retail area, and other businesses can come in on the back of that and make some effort to make the most of it as well, then absolutely, why not? I think that communication is definitely key, and we've seen that in a number of areas. So it's not an individual thing for sure. but
Yeah.
groups
No, that's-
working together can make a big impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're combining this, John, with a business support program that will have a high street sort of focus group. If you're interested in getting some sort of broader digital business support, including, access to grants for uplifts and skills training, then just get in touch. There is a waitlist being developed, and it'd be really great to hear from you. Dan, we've got another question from Richard, and he's got two questions really. First of all, is it possible to understand the different travel modes to each town, to the towns? And that's not what we're monitoring here. I mean, I think from what I understand from the technology, we can build in add-ons, say if we wanted to examine cyclist use, and even like traffic monitoring, but we're not doing that at this stage. And I think, Dan, do you want to go into a bit more techie detail on that?
I think from a GDPR point of view, tracking people is a bit of a no-no. So monitoring people around an area is fine, but when you're tracking people around the country or from their homes and stuff like that, it is not something we do. It's not something that the data laws look kindly on. I know other authorities that are looking at monitoring things like metro or tube travel or bus travel, and they're looking at numbers. They're not really looking at demographic data, but purely numbers. We're working on a number of projects where we're looking at car park data, and that's quite interesting to look alongside footfall. And we are, as you mentioned, looking at things like cycle paths. The purpose of that is not really to track where people are coming from, though. It's to track the usage of that particular facility. And we're trying to separate cyclists from other footfall or traffic. So the idea of kind of monitoring someone and the travel mode that they use to get to a place is not something that we do.
Yeah, I think that's something that we really want to underline, actually, that we're not looking at individuals at all. We're looking at general movements. John's just mentioned a couple of comments about other technological advances, including BT's gait analysis and stuff like that. And that is really not what we're trying to do here. We're looking at general trends of movement. And actually, Richard asked the question, can you track general trends of movement through the town? We're not tracking. I think that's the key thing here that we do. We're not tracking at all, but yes, we can examine and monitor elements of how a town is being used. And that is quite helpful. So even on practical town council decisions, such as a more effective signage, and from an ED and sort of public realm transformation position, it also means that we can examine what little hidden treasures in our towns are not being discovered enough. Are people really aware of all the offer of the whole town? So that's the kind of thing we're using it for. We're not looking at individual habituation. It's not. There's no value in us doing it, and also it would it would contradict our position on personal privacy as well. So I hope that's asked those questions. Is there any follow-up?
Just to kind of take that a little further, there are
yes, please do.
Other data sets that are available that I know some other companies use, which are basically taken from apps or GPS type apps. So it might be things like the weather apps or maps or something like that. Basically apps that are on a good bit of time. And a lot of people talk about that as insights or demographics data to use for town centres. But there's huge issues with that sort of data in the fact that you have to ask for permission from the end user to get anything like that. So we've looked at that data as well, because it looks quite good, because you can get demographic data. You might even be able to see the sort of shops that people shop in, where they've come from, where they live, where they go on a regular basis. But all of this needs to be agreed by the end user. So as part of the app, they will ask in their privacy policy, are you okay with us tracking you at locations? And if they say yes, it can be used. The problem is the numbers are so small, it's very, very difficult to get any trends from that. So we know with some research that we did in Hinckley and Nuneaton and Stockport, you see 1,000 people on the high street using footfall sensors or cameras or whatever you use. The sort of data you see from these apps is in double numbers. It was like 14, but we're seeing thousands in footfall. So you can get that demographic data, but it's just not in big enough numbers really to be able to look at real trends that I think are useful. We're still looking into it. We're still quite keen to look at that data and see how useful it can be. But that's the only way you'll get demographic data is by permission. And the very fact that you need to do that drops the volume of that data massively.
Thanks for that, Dan. I do want to reiterate as well, it's quite interesting talking to a tech-oriented company like Proximity Futures, where Dan is, because it is an evolving world, isn't it? The sort of data capture world. And I'm sure that our project will evolve and respond to technology accordingly. I would say that as a project, it is this part of the Wi-Fi installation is actually part of a wider program, and we do expect it to sort of develop over time. We're knowing from sort of our experience within economic development that the more information, the more data that we get on our town centres, the better we can support them. And actually, we've noticed that more funding bids, so when we have to go out for money or apply for opportunities on behalf of our places, that a lot of them are requiring a lot more evidence, not just kind of spoken word evidence from our partners on the ground, our grassroots groups, our businesses themselves, but actually hard data. And so really we're being quite forward thinking and prescient by putting this technology in, because we think it will not only support those kind of applications, but have a broad sort of benefit of insights that can support our businesses, our economies, but also our communities as well. So it's quite an exciting project to get involved in. Do get in touch as well if you have any further questions. Kay, I don't think we've got any more questions today.
No,
is that correct?
Yeah,
that's
right.
fine. So if you do think of anything, do email us in, and you know, we will do our best to answer it. There's going to be a lot more information about the wider project. Oh, we've got a final question from John. Thank you, John. When can we expect rollout? So actually, rollout started. So we've had our Framley and pilot, but we're moving into the larger towns, Lowestoft and Felixstowe. We hope to be pretty much fully installed there by beginning of April. And then it will be quite a swift rollout into the other towns. But John, if you're quite interested in a specific town, then just get in touch and I will do my best to help with a bit more information for you. I'm expecting to sort of be in touch with all town councils quite soon to let them know. Okay. Is there anything else? I don't think there is today.
Maura, just one thing on the investment side. We've seen this a lot from other locations that we're dealing with, where landlords, property owners, dealing with investors looking to come into a town are definitely asking for that evidence. What sort of footfall are we expecting to see in any one location? And we've helped out with that a few times, and because of the flexibility in the data that we get, we're able to even pinpoint times of day to show when the busiest times of day are and advise on opening times and things like that. But definitely investors are looking for that information now. So it's very, very good to have for that.
Thank you, Dan. And thanks to everyone today for your attendance. Once again, do check the program out and book yourself on to more events. And many thanks as well to Kay today for her technical assistance. Much appreciated. And thank you very much and goodbye.
Thanks, Maura. Thanks, Kay.
Thanks, Dan.